Hello and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Michael Irwin, and today we're going to talk about the three really critical mistakes that managers make that cause them to derail, and what you can do instead so that you confidently hit targets while working 10 less hours a week. All right, so let's jump straight into it and have a look at this. Are you doing things the hard way? If you're like so many other managers out there that I've been working with, then perhaps you'll relate to some of these things. You're doing pretty well. And that's why you've got to being a manager, but you're finding that you're working longer hours. Maybe they're continuing to be long hours or even growing. You often say to yourself, it's easier to do it myself, or it's just quicker if I do it myself. But there's some challenges and problems with that, which we'll get to a bit later. You feel you have to drive everything, that if you're not on top of it, checking up and fixing what's going on, then the work won't get done properly with the quality or on the time required. You want to spend more time with your team members to grow and develop them, but the time and the days just disappear. You have less time for yourself and your friends and family than you used to before you were a manager and before you took on extra responsibility, and you really would like to have that time back. And your main method for growing and developing as a leader is trial and error, trying to work it out yourself as you're going along. So if you relate to some or all of these things, then this is exactly for you. But let's look at this more carefully. Who is this specifically for? And it's for managers who want to be able to fast track their leadership development and effectiveness, and make sure that they're growing quickly and efficiently. For leaders and managers who want to have a balanced life and a successful management career. And yes, it is possible, but there's some key things you've got to put in place. For those people who want to feel consistently confident as a leader rather than having your confidence going up and down or feeling like an imposter at times. And for those people who want to have multiple exciting career options, and also want to be able to have a balanced life where you spend quality time with your family and friends and for yourself. And so you can go away, for example, on a holiday without having work needing to contact you. Now, this is not for everyone. So there's some people who this will not work for. So just take a check on this. So if you're someone who likes to do the work themselves, if you really get a lot of enjoyment from completing the tasks and doing the work yourself, then this is not for you. If you like working long hours and that's something that's important to you and being in control of how the workflow goes, then this is not for you. If you don't want to be an effective manager or a leader, and that's okay too, then this is not for you. And if you're not managing people right now, then you're not going to get the most out of this webinar. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about me. I first became a manager in my late 20s after I was doing really well in sales and marketing. I didn't have any training at that stage, and I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't realize how many mistakes I was making, but I was making a lot of mistakes. And I was trying to figure it out as I was going along, trial and error, trying things, trying to work out what was the best way to go forward. But it was hard. I worked long hours for a long time and putting in a lot of time and effort. But eventually I got some leadership training and coaching some years into my management career. And then I improved in 1 year with that help and that training, especially that coaching and mentoring, than I had in the first 7 years of being a manager. And then as I started to improve, others started asking me to help and coach them as they were noticing how I was becoming much more effective as a leader and a manager. Eventually, after nearly 20 years in corporate, I decided that I was going to have a change, and I became a leadership development coach and trainer. And I have run leadership training for over 5,000 people in that time and coached over 300 managers. And I've helped managers work less hours consistently, have a balanced life, and get promoted and earn more. Also help them hit targets and have an engaged and motivated team. And so they feel much more that they've got an increased level of job satisfaction. They feel happy in their roles. Now, I've worked and been involved with hundreds of leadership programs with many, many hundreds of participants. And many of those, in fact, most of those have had 360-degree feedback reports where they get reports back from other people that they're working with, senior with them peers and their team. So interesting, the 360 feedback is very similar across all of those people and all of those different organizations and different industries. And research from places like the Center for Creative Leadership, the Neuro Leadership Institute, Harvard Business Review, and others find very similar things. And that is that the most common feedback is that managers should stop taking on too much and delegate more. Stop taking on too much and they should delegate more. They should be better at coaching and developing their team members. And eventually that includes having a clear succession plan. They should be better at holding people accountable and being able to manage conflict and have difficult conversations. and they need to get out of the detail and be more strategic. And part of that means contributing to the wider organization. Now, the reason that this happens, this is so common with managers, is that most people that get into the management role believe that what got them to be the manager will make them effective and successful as a manager. But I'm sorry to tell you that it won't. You've actually got to make some clear and distinct changes. So let me tell you, what are the steps to fast track into a confident and a highly effective leader that works 10 less hours a week and yet hits your KPI targets and performs extremely well and has an engaging team? Well, here are the 3 steps that you need to work through. So firstly, you've got to realize that what got you here is not enough for you to succeed as a leader and as a manager. So you've got to make a significant mindset shift. Now, you've also got to realize that you need to create a clear plan on how to be at your best as a leader. So most managers get thrown into it and they're so busy keeping up with the day-to-day that they haven't actually made time to stop and think, what does my best look like? What should I be aspiring to? Who am I when I'm at my best as a leader? And then the next thing you need to do is get off the slow track and onto the fast track to leadership development and mastery. And that means essentially not using the trial and error method and getting some method that's proven, that's going to help you to fast track your leadership growth and development. And the outcome, if you put these things in place, is that you become a confident leader with multiple career options and more time for your loved ones in your balanced life. Okay, so let's have a look at the things that people are doing wrong so consistently and that actually causes your career to derail that most of the managers make. Okay, so the first one, what got me here is enough. So that's where managers think what made you successful as a team member that led you to getting the promotion as a manager will make you successful as a manager and a leader, but it will not make you successful. Because what has got you successful as a team member was all about doing and delivering, okay? You were getting things done. You were reliable. You were the go-to person. You were the person who made things happen. A leadership and management, effective leadership is about engaging with others so that they do the work and you get the outcomes through others, which means you have to change your whole approach, okay? No longer is it about you doing most of the work. It now becomes that you have to engage with others so they're the ones who get things done, okay? So what got me here is enough, but it's actually not. That's the mistake people make. And what you need to do is make sure that you've got this change. Because if you fall into this trap, these are the kind of things that will happen. There are just too many tasks for you to do in the same way as you used to, and there's not enough time. So you'll end up working longer hours. You could start to head towards burnout. And eventually, depending on the level of responsibility, it's just literally going to be physically and mentally and emotionally impossible to get it all done. Okay. Now, the other thing that starts to happen is that as you're doing the key tasks, the most important tasks, you're doing the fixes, you're thinking it's just quicker if I do this one myself. It's just easier if I do that. If I do this, I know it'll be done right. And you're actually letting your team get into this comfort zone of doing the easier work. And that's what they get used to, and that's the level that they will perform at. Okay. Now, management is another situation that's happening. Management love that you deliver and you do the work and you do the longer hours and that they can rely on you. And they keep coming to you and telling you, you need to do this or you need to make sure that this is going to happen. But what they don't tell you is that often they'll be reticent to give you a promotion, okay? They don't think that you can handle it because if you take on more responsibility and more team members, how are you going to go about making sure everything gets done in that same way that you're doing most of it yourself? And eventually what happens is that you'll miss something. There'll be some sort of a mistake or something that gets missed, and that will have an impact on your reputation and your own confidence. And the other thing is that as you're working longer or taking on more stress, often your health and relationships suffer, okay? So these are the things that you've got to be aware of if you're making this number one mistake, which is still trying to do so much of it yourself in the way that you did, the way that made you successful for the early part of your career. So the key step here that you've got to change is to realize what got you here is not enough for you to succeed as a leader. You must make the mind shift change to being a leader, which is about getting things done through others rather than you doing so much of it yourself. Okay. Now, if you don't make this mind shift, as we've been talking about, if you stick with saying it's easier to do it myself, if I do it, I know it'll be done right. Okay, you're going to build up those those situations where you just don't have enough time to get everything done. You'll find yourself fixing things and putting out the fires. Again, you'll be the bottleneck. You'll be the key go-to person, but you're going to be the one that everyone relies on. And that's putting more pressure, more stress, and usually more hours onto your role. You'll find yourself reacting most of the time, juggling lots of the different balls, just trying to keep up with all of the things that you're required to do or that you're taking on yourself. And so again, the amount of tasks and the stress just continues to build. And you find that your confidence is tied to completing the tasks and what people are saying to you about how well you're doing things, and whether you're getting things completed. Okay. And then we've got to make this change so that is not so much tied to your confidence. You want to have a much more stable basis of confidence as you go forward. So you have to be able to let go of doing and literally work through a mindset where it becomes about you getting others in your team to do all of the tasks that you are currently doing in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not all of the time, and definitely not straight away, that eventually working towards that state where everyone else can do the tasks that you do, so they're not relying just on you. Okay, so to be a highly effective leader, here's what you need to do. So you've got to build strong trust and respect and relationships with your team so that you feel that you can work with them and hand things over to them, but also they're trusting you and the support and the guidance that you will give to them, and that you will believe in them to be able to get things done. You need to make time for strategic thinking and reflection. So you need to be able to stop and to push back the day-to-day crazy things, all of the tasks that are happening, and think bigger picture, not only for your team, but also how that contributes to the overall organization and how that flows through from your organization into the other key stakeholders that you have. You need to be able to use strategies to be at your best as a leader. So you need to know what that is, and you need to know how to be there consistently. Okay. You need to be able to set and stick to boundaries. That's a key part of being able to have the balanced lifestyle, but it's also a key part of getting respect and credibility as a manager and a leader. You need to be able to know what impacts your energy and your emotions. Okay, so energy is actually one of the most important things in making sure that you are effective and you are getting the appropriate things done. And then we all have our different emotions. Emotionally intelligent leadership is a key part of being an effective manager and leader. And then you also must be able to put in place the key strategies that enable each team member to be at their very best. You've got to know what that is and enable and help them to grow. All right. And then as part of the strategic thinking, you need to be able to contribute to the success of the wider organization. And these all require you to let go of the day-to-day tasks and focus on these elements of being a manager and a leader. So how do you go about doing this? Here are some key steps. Firstly, see yourself as a leader. Take that step and make that difference as how you see yourself. So you are a leader and a manager, and your team and others around you are the ones that are doing the work every day. You need to define what authentic leadership means to you. So that means getting clear on what is your individual, your own authentic leadership style. You need to be able to think strategically and add value to the broader organization. You need to let go of doing tasks and let go of the thinking it's easier to do it myself, and change that. So instead of finding the motivation in doing the tasks as you may have in the past, you find motivation from engaging and growing and developing and empowering your team members and seeing that they are able to get things done themselves, and from motivation from what the team achieves and from the leadership actions that you've been able to put that in place. Here's a comment from one of the people that I did some coaching with. And the key thing here is that you can do courses, you can do diplomas, you can even do an MBA as Jude did. That doesn't necessarily mean that you know exactly how to implement the most effective and proven methods that will make you a highly effective leader. So something to really think about and going forward here is, how do you make sure that you are going to be able to use proven processes? And we'll come back to that a little bit later. Step number 2, create a clear plan on how to be at your best as a leader. Now, the mistake that's often made here that would be really critical for most managers, and it leads to derailing, is that people think, I'll just work hard and it'll be okay. Almost all managers, as we've said, are promoted because they are very good at completing tasks and have specialist knowledge. You've been good in your role as a team member and individual contributor. That is so different to being a manager and a leader, as we've just been spoken about. So you get thrown in the deep end. Very few people have any training or very much training at all before they get into a management role. And everyone hopes that because you're motivated and capable, that you'll figure it out and you'll survive. But most people really don't know what it's like to be at their best as a manager, especially when they first go into that management role. And for many, this goes on for years and years. And they don't know what being authentic as a leader looks like to them. So that's something that you need to get clear on. Okay. Most managers get very little leadership and training, as I said, or coaching. And coaching is a key part of it because it's the element that allows you to continue to improve over time. Training tends to be a lot of information in one small block. The hard part is taking that information and applying it effectively. And that's where coaching and mentoring is very helpful. And most managers are not sure if they can really be themselves. Can I be myself and also be a highly effective leader? Okay. And there's a whole variety of reasons around personalities and values that come into that. But yes, you can be. You've got to figure that out for yourself, though. What does that look like? And then most managers, because they don't have that training, they don't know what are the actual foundation tools required to be an effective leader. And they don't have those models, those steps, those scripts that they can use to help them fast track their success. Right, so there's lots of problems with this, as you can imagine. What it means is that you'll be working hard and then probably even harder and longer, and it's not sustainable. It's something that will eventually break. There'll either be a mistake, or the stress will get to you, or you'll head towards burnout, or the motivation will just go away and you don't want to do this particular type of role or work in this organization anymore. Now, the other thing is senior management are less likely to promote you because you are not easy to replace, okay? Because you're doing so much of the critical thing, there's a big gap between your team members and what you're doing. And so senior management, without telling you specifically, won't like to promote you because there's just too much of a gap behind you. And they're also unsure how you will cope with the extra responsibility. If you step up a level and you go about things the way you are, then there's twice as much of the things that you've got to do yourself or fix yourself or be the one handling yourself. And they're unsure, is that really going to work if you step up to another level? So as you do all the harder tasks and put out the fires, your team relies on you to do that. And they rely on you to do the problem solving, the thinking. And so one, they're not learning, perhaps they're not growing, but also they're in this nice little medium level of average performance and comfort zone, which makes you think more, oh, well, I've got to make sure I do it because I'm not sure that they're doing it, or they don't seem to show initiative or take it on themselves. Okay. So managers who keep doing this find that they burn out, or they're heading towards burnout, or they lose motivation, or their career derails because of the way management see them, and you sort of get pushed across to the side. And it feels quite disengaging. But there is a better way. What you need to do, if you want a better way, is to commit 100% to being a leader. So you stop the doing and the fixing, and you empower others, and you rely on them and develop them and hold them accountable. And there's a fine line between empowering but also making sure that you hold people accountable. You set boundaries for yourself and your team, and you make sure that you stick to them. And that's another part of holding people accountable. Senior management then will see you with a new level of respect and capability. And part of the boundaries is also about pushing back on senior management. And it can feel uncomfortable. And to a certain extent, senior management don't necessarily like it to start with. On the other hand, it creates the respect and capability that enables you to get seriously considered for more promotions and job opportunities. And that's when the multiple career options come in, because you are a rare leader who is capable of building a high-performing team and engaging their team. So be at your best as a leader. Here's the steps that can help you to get to this level. Define what authentic leadership looks like to you. So you'll need to know your strengths, your weaknesses, values, your personality, style, and your motivators, and bring that into what a definition of your authentic leadership style looks like to you. And also document what 10 out of 10 leadership, you at your very best as a leader, looks like for you, and regularly reflect on that and how you're performing and how you're working towards being at your very best as a leader. Seek feedback on your leadership. Listen to what others say and make changes based on that feedback so you're consistently growing. And have a plan to manage and engage your energy, especially including time to refresh and re-energize, because that's a key part of you being able to be at your best. If you're not doing that, then you're going to be tired, and that's going to have an impact on how you're performing as a manager and a leader. So here's just a little bit about what Alex did and how he changed his approach to build his confidence and get his team to step up and be in a totally different place. And so he can now perform. He's now taken a couple of steps up to perform at a senior level in his organization. So let's move on to step number 3. Get off the slow track and onto the fast track of leadership mastery. Okay, now the mistake that most people make here is that now I'm a manager, right? I'll work out a way to get better. And to some extent, it's true, but it's slow. So let's have a look at what most people do in order to think, right, I will grow and improve as a manager. So they look at, to be a good manager, I'll do what I wanted my manager or managers to do for me. Okay. Now that may work, but it may be that other people want different things. So is that really going to work? You could try a whole bunch of different approaches to see what works. Okay. And eventually you'll probably get there, but that's a slow process. So you can think about good managers, what they did, and try and figure it out what they did well that you would like to also use as a manager and a leader. How do you know exactly what a good manager is? You could think about the poor managers and try not to repeat their mistakes. You can watch a variety of TED Talks, do short courses, read books. There's so much information out there on leadership. It's actually confusing for most people. And the other challenge there is that most of those are not easy to implement. And there's also many that are conflicting. So you read one thing one day and then you see a TED Talk on something and it says something a little bit different. So how do you figure out what actually works? So have to think about this. Have a think about professional athletes or professional actors or musicians. Do they take this sort of approach? I'll just jump in and play and figure it out? Or do they go about it in a different way? Of course, they go about it in a different way. They get specific people to help them on their path to fast track their improvement. So as you can imagine, the old approach is problematic. There's issues and challenges that will lead to you being burned out or derailing your career. So one of the key things is it's a trial and error method, and trial and error is slow. Okay, it's just the way that it works. You've got to keep trying all different things till you figure out what's going to be best. It's a slow process, and it's unlikely to get you to be at your very, very best because you're relying on your own interpretation of situations. You're not getting a significant amount of input from others who have already had this sort of similar experience. It's hard work. Trial and error is hard work, and it's stressful in the sense that trial and error means that you're going to make mistakes. It's risky in that sense. You don't know what the proven methods are, so you're trying to figure it out as you're going along, which means that you're doing things that are ineffective along the way to try and figure out what is going to be effective. So it's risky. Now, when you're trying to implement ideas, as I mentioned before, from different videos or books or courses, it's hard. Even if you've got some really, really good information and then you try and implement it, it's hard to get that right correctly and in the first instance. So you need a sense of practice, and you ideally need feedback and support as you're going along. Otherwise, you don't get to be at your best, or what happens with most people is that try it once or twice after been to training or read a book. It doesn't quite work the way that it sounded in the training, and so they don't do it anymore. So how do you know who is actually a highly effective manager? If you haven't thought about these things before, then you could be basing all of the trial and error process that you're doing on something that actually isn't going to work in the end or isn't reflective of a highly effective manager and leader. Okay. So, and some people just try and do the opposite of what the poor leaders are. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be effective, as I just said. And as I've mentioned, there are many, many different things out there, many resources out there that you can use in terms of learning about leadership. But the hard part is actually making sure that you implement it effectively. So imagine that you were learning about playing the guitar or dancing or playing tennis, as I briefly mentioned, with professional people, or even if it's not fully professional, if there's just you learning to play something. Okay. Now, if you read a book or watched some videos on YouTube learning to play the guitar or play tennis, do you think that you could improve quickly? Do you think that you could become very best learning by yourself? And how would that be? And how long would it take? Okay. So if you really wanted to be at your very best, what would you do? So let's have a look at a better way. So use proven methods, okay? So whether it's being a leader or whether it's learning to play guitar or learning to play tennis, you go to a coach, you go to someone who knows how to play the guitar or play tennis. They teach you proven methods so that you can improve your skills in that area. You go away and practice, you come back, and you then work more on developing those skills. Okay, so use the proven methods. You can implement the solutions based on what heaps of other managers have used and proven to be successful. So you have proven specific processes and approaches for critical situations, like giving feedback, and feedback should be given every day, delegating effectively every time, how to have difficult conversations, how to handle conflict. So you're not trying to rely on you figuring it out how to do it, but you've got proven processes that other people have used and shown that they definitely work. And now you're able to use those. And you'll feel more confident as a leader as you know what you are doing is effective. Even if you're not using it as effective as it could be when you first start learning, you know this is a proven approach and a way forward. So you just need to build your skills in that area and it will work. And as you do these things, you find that your team will step up and deliver much more high quality work and they become more engaged. And then you find that you're working less hours and having greater life balance. How would that sound? Okay, so what you need to do here is get the support you need to implement the plan. This is the key thing. Don't go trial and error all by yourself. Get the support that you need. So you need to create your own leadership development plan with both internal and external coaches and implement it. So you've got the support and you've got the people who can provide you with the information about the proven methodologies going forward, and you can get the feedback consistently as you're growing and developing. Okay, so build your development team, the team around you who will help you grow. A variety of different people in different ways that can help you with your growth. Identify some training programs to help support your development plan, and identify projects within your organization or perhaps outside of your organization that will help you grow in specific areas and opportunities for you to expand your capabilities. And key, I suggest that you need to have an experienced coach that you can go to confidentially to talk through the challenges and the issues. Okay, and often, and I say externally is an idea here. It's important that external coaches are involved often because people want to talk about how they're feeling about some of the challenges, about how the confidence going up and down, about some of the politics that might be going on inside the organization. And they need to be able to feel free to talk openly about that without fear of how that might be interpreted or perceived inside the organization. So let me tell you a little bit about Brad. So Brad, he was a manager in a finance firm in his early 30s, married with one child, and he was overloaded and working long hours when he came to me to do some coaching. He worked long and hard to show his boss and his company that he was really, really committed and was looking for a promotion. And he felt that he deserved a promotion, but he was overlooked for several promotions and he was getting frustrated. So the first thing he did, like some of the mistakes that I've told you about here, is that he worked harder and longer, taking on more and doing more himself. And then he missed out again. And along the way, he didn't get any useful feedback. Things like, you're not quite right for the role is not quite right for you, or you're not quite ready for that type of a role. And really what was happening here is what I mentioned earlier, is they were seeing Brad as someone who was working such long hours and so hard that they weren't actually sure about his capability moving forward. So I helped Brad understand in depth about his personality and his style and the mistakes that we've been talking about and how that was driving his behaviors. And a key part with Brad and understanding his style was that his high energy and had a spontaneous way of getting involved, and the commitment to working those long hours and doing things himself were actually the reasons that he missed out on the promotions. He looked stunned when that insight really sunk in, that the things that he felt were working and that were important, and how hard he'd been working was actually going against him in getting a promotion. So he set some boundaries and he started to say no to some projects. He looked at working less hours and focused on empowering his team and doing less of the work himself and enabling his team to make sure that they were growing and developing. So 6 months later, he got that promotion that he'd been looking for several years, and was told that the executive team could now say he could handle taking on more responsibility. Now, Brad got promoted another 18 months later, and he tells me that the pivotal change was the transformation through the coaching program, through his ability to take these 3 steps, okay, to realize that what got you to being a manager is not enough to make you a really successful manager and leader. Step number 2, you need to develop that clear plan on how to be at your best. So know what it looks like and get a plan on how to get there as your very best as a leader. And then get off the slow track and onto the fast track to leadership mastery. So get away from trial and error and get onto using proven methodologies. So are you interested in being a successful, confident, and balanced leader? Now, let's have a look at moving forward, where you might go from here. You have a choice. You can try to do this yourself, or you can get expert help. If you're trying to do it yourself, you're still staying in that slow path of trial and error and taking more things on yourself. So have a think about, what will it cost you if you don't change? What will burnout cost you if you're heading down that line? And so many people have. Will it cost you to feel the roller coaster ups and downs of your confidence, or maybe feeling imposter syndrome at times? What will it cost you for slow growth in your development and slow path to promotion? What's it worth to you to have consistently high confidence? How would that feel? What would that mean to you? What's it worth to you to have a balanced lifestyle instead of just continually long hours, and have a really satisfying workplace with a high-performing, engaged team? So let's consider what you need to move forward. So with my program, you get a 30-day test drive. So moving forward is risk-free. You get a done-with-you implementation. So it's not a training program where you get information and then it's like a wave goodbye, good luck, do it yourself. It's support and guidance and weekly coaching to help you. You're implementing a system that accelerates your leadership development and career progression based on proven methodologies and approaches. It takes about 2 hours a week. You can put in more if you like, and you can be at your best in as little as 90 days. So the typical costs are $650 a month over 6 months plus GST, with full access and support. And there's an option to pay less if you pay upfront. So most of you will have booked the online complimentary coaching session, so I look forward to seeing you at that online complimentary session very soon. We can talk about all of these things and how that specifically relates to you. For those of you who haven't booked the complimentary coaching session just yet, here's the next step and what you need to do. Simple. Here's the link. So make a note of this link, type that in, and you go straight to my calendar where you can book in your free 30-minute leadership coaching assessment. And we can see where you are in terms of the things we've just been talking about and give you options for moving forward. So I look forward to seeing that you've booked your free complimentary leadership coaching session, and I'll be talking to you very soon. All the best. Have a great day.